You ever watch a storm roll in and just know deep down in your bones that something else is coming with it? That's exactly how it felt, that December night snow coming down so heavy it turned the world outside my window into a blank page, and all the while I'm watching Patricia Thornton, our ever-righteous HOA president, creeping across my property like she's starring in her own private thriller. She didn't know I was sitting in my office sipping coffee, tracking her every move on my security cams. She sure didn't know she was about to make the worst mistake of her life. See, for 8 straight months, Patricia had tried every trick in the HOA playbook to get me off my own land. I'm not talking friendly reminders, I'm talking legal threats, letters, public shaming online, the whole 9 yards. But that night, with the wind howling and the temperature dropping, she went and crossed a line you just don't come back from. She decided to break into my root cellar. Now, I've learned a few things in life. 20 years studying rare plant species will teach you patience and how to watch before you act. My grandfather left me this place, 5 acres of pine trees and old stories, and the only thing older than the cellar out back is the idea that you should always keep good records. That's why I'd put in cameras, night vision, a high-tech lock on that cellar door that would make a bank jealous. Call it overkill if you want, but on nights like that, you're glad for overkill. By 6, the sky was black snow hammering the pines, wind making the whole house groan. My granddad used to say storms show you who people really are, and brother, he wasn't kidding. At 6:15 there, it was on my monitor, a tiny flicker of light weaving through the snow, moving low, checking over their shoulder. Patricia, hunched up in her fancy winter coat, was headed straight for the cellar, backpack slung over her shoulder like she was on some top-secret mission. She knelt at the outer door, started working. The lock. Didn't know or didn't care. She was on camera every second, time-stamped, high-def, saved 3 different ways. I didn't panic. I just watched. You learn more by letting people show you who they are than by stopping them. Eventually, that old lock gave way. She slipped inside and, without knowing it, tripped my grandfather's little trick, a self-locking bolt that clicked shut behind her. One way in, one way out, and the other exit was locked down with an electronic system only I could open. She'd just locked herself in a concrete bunker in the middle of a blizzard, and she had no idea. Sometimes justice just needs a little patience and a whole lot of documentation. I could have called the sheriff right then, but honestly, I wanted to let her sweat a little. 8 months of harassment earns you at least a few minutes of uncomfortable reality, don't you think? So I sat back, checked the app on my phone, watched the battery and lock status. Everything green on my end, everything closing in on her end. You might be wondering why go through all this. Why not just let it go, turn the other cheek? Well, here's the truth. Boundaries matter. Not just property lines, but the kind that say, this is mine, and you don't get to take it just because you want to. Patricia couldn't accept that my land wasn't subject to her HOA rules. No matter how many times I showed her the documents, no matter how many lawyers' letters I sent back, she just kept pushing. When the law wouldn't give her power, she tried social pressure, started a neighborhood group online, posted pictures of my house, claimed I was dragging down the whole street. Some folks bought into it, others pushed back. But through it all, I stayed quiet, just stacking up records, screenshots, and proof. It all came to a head at the HOA meeting in November. She tried to sneak in a proposal to expand the HOA boundary to scoop up properties like mine that were legally outside their reach. I sat in the back, listened to her pitch, then stood up and calmly tore her argument to shreds. The room went silent. The vote not even close, overwhelmingly against her. After the meeting, she cornered me in the parking lot, eyes full of that brittle smile, and said she'd prove I was in violation of something even if she had to find the evidence herself. And now, there she was sitting in my root cellar flashlight beam, sweeping over the keypad, trying every code she could think of, first the obvious ones, then the year the HOA was founded. That one almost made me laugh. Every failed attempt sent a ping to my phone. When she tripped the security protocol and triggered a lockout, I watched her sit down on the steps, shoulders slumped, trapped by her own obsession. I thought I'd feel vindicated, triumphant even, but honestly, I just felt tired. Tired of fighting, tired of defending what shouldn't need defending. There's this idea that people like Patricia run on that if you just keep pushing, if you wear folks down, you'll get your way. But the truth is sometimes you push too far and run smack into the wall called law. I finally unmuted the intercom little speaker hidden in the ceiling and spoke her full name. You should have seen her jump. I told her I'd been watching the whole time, that she was trespassing, breaking and entering everything on camera, everything logged. She demanded I open the door, accused me of trapping her, called it illegal imprisonment. I let her get it all out. Then explained the fact she'd locked herself in. I hadn't touched a thing, and I'd let her out the second the sheriff arrived to document the whole mess. She tried switching gears, went from anger to sweet talking in under a minute, but I just told her no. No private deals, no working it out quietly. Actions have consequences. After 20 minutes, I called the county sheriff, laid out the facts, sent over the video. The dispatcher said it'd be about an hour with the roads, but they'd send someone. While I waited, I watched her go through every stage denial, anger bargaining, then just sitting there bundled up and staring at nothing. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. When the deputy arrived, same guy who'd responded to a noise complaint here months before I laid out the story, showed him the footage, the logs, everything. We trudged out to the cellar snow, up to our knees. He checked the lock saw, the tool marks, called for backup and medical just in case. When we finally let her out, she bolted into the snow, then froze when she saw all those uniforms and official vehicles waiting for her. Her face ran through 100 emotions, rage, confusion, horror, before the deputy read her rights. All business, no drama. She barely said a word, just stared at me, mascara-streaked hands shaking, blanket pulled tight. For once, the woman who always had something to say was dead silent. The deputies processed everything, took my statement, collected evidence. I handed over all the files, every screenshot, every timestamp. They told me she'd be charged with trespassing, criminal mischief, maybe even attempted burglary. They asked if I felt safe. I said, after tonight, I finally did. After they left, I stood in the quiet house watching the snow bury the tracks and thinking how sometimes the real fight isn't flashy or loud. It's just the slow, grinding work of not giving in. It's preparing, documenting, drawing your line and sticking to it, even when it'd be easier to just open the door and move on. And yeah, it caused an uproar in the community. Some people called to thank me for standing up to her. Others thought I'd gone too far, that I should have just let it slide. A few tried to intimidate me, knocked over my mailbox, dumped trash at the end of my driveway, but I just kept documenting, reporting, refusing to be rattled. The fallout was quick. The HOA board held an emergency meeting, booted Patricia from the presidency, and apologized to me in writing official certified, the whole bit. Turns out I wasn't the only one she'd targeted over the years. Folks who'd stayed quiet started sharing their own stories, and for the first time, real change started to happen. They overhauled their enforcement procedures, brought in new leadership, even asked for my input on staying within the law. I kept my answers simple: respect boundaries, and there won't be a problem. At her hearing, Patricia took a pre-probation community service restitution for my security upgrades and a 2-year restraining order. No jail, no felony, just a permanent mark and the end of her reign. I never wanted her life ruined. I just wanted the harassment to stop and for the community to learn that power without limits isn't power at all. It's just intimidation. The months that followed were quiet. For the first time in ages, nobody bothered me. The cameras stayed up, but I hardly checked them. The new HOA president actually came by for coffee, talked about real community, about planting a garden everyone could share. The peace felt strange at first, like the silence after a long fight, but I got used to it. Spring finally came. I was out in the cellar sorting seeds, planting the garden, feeling the solid concrete walls, and thinking of my grandfather, how he built things to last, and how sometimes you have to do the same for yourself. That's what boundaries really are, not just fences or lines on a map, but the bones of a peaceful life. Respect them, and you get community. Cross them, and well, you learn the hard way. You know, I learned something in all this. Patience isn't weakness. It's just waiting for the right moment to stand your ground with everything in order, evidence law, and that quiet certainty you did it right. It isn't glamorous, but it works. So, let me ask you, if someone kept pushing your boundaries, would you let it go and hope for peace, or would you stand firm and let justice do its thing, even if it means shaking up your whole world? Drop a comment. Share your story, and let's talk about where you draw the line, because sometimes that line's the only thing standing between you and chaos.